everybody, my name is Mr. Francy and welcome back to Mr. Francy Reads. Yes, your eyes are not deceiving you. Today we are doing my March monthly wrap with a twist. This is my March monthly wrap part 1. And that is because I've read more books than I normally do this year anyway, and I want enough time to actually celebrate the books or talk about them. And yeah, if I just put them all into one video, we would be here for half an hour with me telling you the bare minimum. I wouldn't have enough time to get through all of them. So I'm splitting it into 2 halves. I'm going to talk to you about the first half of the books in this video, and then in the next one, I'll tell you the others. Okay. All right. I think that's pretty clear. Okay. So, let's go through the stats as they stand right now. So at the time that you're watching this, we are now in April. At the time I'm filming this, we are still in March. I need to film this early. So, I do not have complete stats now, but I will have complete stats in part 2. But for where I'm at right now at the time of filming, here are the stats. Let's put them up on the screen. Okay. So, in the month of March up to this point, I have read a total of 10 books comprising of 2 contemporaries, 3 cozy mysteries, 2 LGBTIQ+ books, 1 fantasy, and 1 romance. Talk about celebrating diversity in genres for the second month in a row. I am so proud. This is so good. I'm sorry to just give you a side note here, but we have the time, so I'm going to take it. I am so happy. I have many goals for 2023. I always have goals for the year, but I am so happy that I am reading so many different genres every month. I'm doing it consistently. That just makes me so happy, regardless of how I feel about the book. Diversifying my reading, it was a goal. I'm sticking to it. I need to make that point. Let's move on. So, to my age group, at this stage, of those 9 books that I've read 4 YA, 4 adult, and 1 middle grade. So, pretty even amongst the YA and adult books, which is pretty good. To my lengths, I have read 1 tome, 8 half tomes, and that's it. Totaling 3,142 pages. And to my star ratings, I have 5 5-stars, 1 4.5 star, 2 4 stars, and 1 3 star. So, look, pretty good given that I don't have any 2 stars or 1 star, and the fact that the majority of the books that I've read so far this month are 5 stars is pretty gosh dang incredible. The fact that I've read 9 books and over half of them, 5, were 5 stars, to me is amazing. I've read some awesome books this month. No wonder I want more time to celebrate them. So, I'm going to begin as I always do when this situation does arise, which it did in the month of March, which is discussing any and all books I DNF'd. I DNF'd 1 book this month, and unlike last month, I'm actually going to tell you the correct book that I DNF'd. I'm so sorry that I gave you an incorrect book last time and you had to read it on the screen with some beautiful music in the background. But anyway, alright, let's talk about what I actually DNF'd. The correct book that I DNF'd this time round was this book, Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. This is book number 3 in the Infernal Devices series. Why did I DNF it? We have the time, so I'm gonna tell you. This series, it's just been a series. Oh, it was painful. Not everything about it was painful, but as someone who goes into books blind, the only 2 expectations I can have when I go into books are the expectations that come with the age rating and the genre. And that's all I have. This particular trilogy, Infernal Devices, is a YA fantasy series. And so, What I need to make this fit the bill is that we need a lot of fantastical elements. Do I feel like we had a lot of fantastical elements? No, honestly. But more than that, what I need to keep my interest is that the fantasy elements are entertaining. And in this case, they just weren't. So all I can tell you is that we have this group of shadow hunters that are so at the beginning of the series, because anything I tell you about book 3 will be a spoiler, but at the beginning of the series, we have a group of shadow hunters in England, I think it is. It's somewhere in the UK, division of shadow hunters, who are fighting an evil dude, because isn't it always the way in a fantasy? You're fighting an evil dude. But in this case, the evil dude's dominions are these robot thingies that are referred to as, well, yes, look on the spine, Mr. Francy, infernal devices. And yes, they are. They're infernal thingies that I don't like. Because, and I'll tell you why I don't like it. It's so lame. It's not like they are these AI beings that talk or do anything interesting. They are literally these little, and when I say robot, please don't think I'm talking about these tall or human-sized robots. They're these little thingies, little robot thingies that are trying to attack our shadow hunters. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but my response to this is boring. And I read book 1, I read book 2, I liked the characters. I did. I'll celebrate the characters when I talk about this series as a series that I've now crossed off my SAS list. But as far as wanting to continue on with the plot, I just couldn't anymore. And I tried. I DNF'd this book and then I picked it up and gave it a second chance because, I need to give a massive shout out to my dear friend Michelle, who is continuing to read the series at the moment. Shout out to her channel, Cozy Reading with Michelle. That is Michelle, Michelle. Cozy, the American way, Cozzzy. Reading with Michelle. Anyway, so my dear friend Michelle was reading this trilogy with me as part of the buddy read they were doing for the Cassandra Clare buddy read, and she and her partner, Nick, were invested enough to keep going because they were reading it together. And I asked her if she would give me updates here and there, and she has been doing that. And I really appreciate it because had I kept reading this book, I would have been so annoyed because I just really wasn't enjoying it. But getting the updates, Michelle, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's really helped me to be able to just, dot every I and cross every T, basically. But it just wasn't for me. I've spent a lot of time talking about the book I DNF'd. Let's move on. Okay, before we do, very quickly, just need to tell you, I am still crossing the Infernal Devices series off on my SAS list as completed, despite the fact that I DNF'd that book. I will still make the point when I discuss this as part of my completed series that I DNF'd the third book, but since I'm not going back to it, I will consider the series complete. Speaking of complete, let's now talk about the first book that I completed in the month of March, and that was this book, Mistborn: The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is, in my view, an adult fantasy. It has been marketed as both. It literally has been marketed out there as it's sold in bookstores as an adult fantasy or a YA fantasy, depending upon where you go. And that is because when Brandon Sanderson originally released this book, he releases as an adult fantasy, and then it was created or branded, I guess, as a YA fantasy. So anyway, it is what it is. Brandon Sanderson originally intended to release this as an adult fantasy, so I consider it to be as such. So, that in mind, Mistborn: The Final Empire is, in my mind, an adult fantasy, and this was a reread for me. I reread it for the 4th time, and I still came up giving it 5 stars. I mean, this is my favorite book on my bookshelf. I'm considering taking out book insurance, and if ever there was a book that needed the highest priority in my shelf, it is this book that, even though you can't see me, I'm holding it in my hands, okay? It is the Tor Publishing edition of Mistborn: The Final Empire. Anyway, okay, so quick premise for you. We are following a teenage urchin by the name of Vin, who was part of an all-male thieving crew who were treating her horribly. Vin is rescued by this hero guy called Kelsia, who wants to bring down the final empire, which is the dystopian fantasy world that they're a part of right now, because we're in a world where a battle of good and evil had taken place 1,000 years ago, and evil won, and evil has been ruling ever since, and no one feels that they can do anything to stop this, except for this guy, Kelsia. So, Kelsia ends up rescuing Vin and bringing her onto his team, who are an all-male crew, but they treat her properly, with the view that she can assist them to do what they can to bring down this evil Lord Ruler and the final empire. The magic system revolves around ingesting certain types of metals that give you certain abilities. I love this book. I love this book. For those who didn't hear me that are way up the back, I love this book. And if you ever pick up this book and you let me know, just watch my reaction, because you know, if you have in the past, how much I love the final empire. So it was a pleasure to reread this. I had to carry it over to March because I started it towards the end of February, but oh my gosh. Still to this day, an absolute pleasure to read. 5 stars from me. The next book that I read was this book, Death of a Chocoholic by Lee Hollis. This is book number 4 in the Hayley Powell Food and Cocktail Mystery Series, and I have broken my ratings beautiful flow that I had with this series up to this point, because I've given this book, book 4 in the series, 3 stars. The reason I'm saying it that way is because I gave book 1, book 2, and book 3 5 stars, and then I gave this one 3 stars. This book overall incredibly disappointed me. I still think that this series as a whole is a good series, and I could still see things that I love about the series in this book, but overall this one did not work for me. And as I said in my April TBR, there is a lot for me personally riding on book 5, Death of a Christmas Caterer, that I'm reading in April, because if that one is just as bad as this one, I don't know if I'll want to keep going, which is really sad because I absolutely loved books 1, 2, and 3. In any case, the premise for book number 4 is that Hayley ends up befriending a woman named Bessie, who is an outcast in their area. Bessie has a love of making chocolate and wants to start her own company, even going as far to name some of her chocolates after Hayley. But when Bessie ends up dead and everyone else becomes so willing to throw it off as death by natural causes, Hayley decides to jump in and determine if it was actually murder. So to my thoughts. Overall, this book was okay. I had a huge gripe with it though, because Bessie, Bessie, our victim, is plus sized and has some cats. Her home is made out to be a hoarder house also, but because of this, any and all opportunity that Lee Hollis had to make fun of or judge Bessie, they did, and this really annoyed me. Worst of all, they did it through Hayley in the beginning, which seems so out of character for her. Yeah, so that just didn't sit well with me at all. Hayley Powell in books 1, 2, and 3 does not come across as judgmental at all. And at the beginning of this book, she came across as a judgmental bee, a word we can't say on YouTube, but you know what I'm saying. And if you've ever read a series that you are so incredibly invested in that you get to the point where you know the characters and you love the characters, I'm sure you'll agree with me that there is nothing more annoying than seeing a character you love do something that is so incredibly out of character. And I felt like certain judgments that Hayley made in this book were so incredibly out of character for her. I am 100% against any sort of shaming at all, and Hayley is just not someone who shames people, and she was, and it was just really annoying me. Look, on the plus side, I did call the killer, which is only the second time in my cozy reading life, and I've read at least 60, 70 cozy mysteries, and I've only ever called the killer once before this one and now twice. So that's a big yay for me. But I mean, you know, aside from that, the majority of this book just did not work for me. Please, I'm just putting it out there into the universe. Please, can book 5 be a good book with nothing judgmental? Because I do want to keep going with this series, and I'll give you 1 pass. But if you're going to give me 2 books in a row that are going to incredibly let me down, that would be enough this early on into a 19-book series for me to say I'm done. So now if you're part of the buddy read for this series, please don't think that means that the buddy read will be dropped on my Discord. It won't be. It just means that I won't keep going. But the buddy read will still be available regardless. But for me, this is almost enough for me to want to stop reading now anyway. But I'm just really hoping that book 5 is okay, because here's the secret for you. I already have book 6 ready to go. So please tell me I didn't waste my money and that book 5 is okay. Time will tell. 3 stars. I'm realizing, despite the fact that I'm cutting this into 1 and 2 parts for my monthly wrap, I've already taken incredibly long just to get through 2 books and 1 DNF, so let's move right along. The next book that I read in the month of March 2023 was this book, P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. This is a YA romance and is the second book in the To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy, which means I'm over halfway through and I will complete this trilogy in this month that you're watching the video in April. Okay, so book 1, To All the Boys I Loved Before, I really did not like the first half at all. I felt like Lara Jean, who is our protagonist, came across as incredibly immature, but in the second half of the book, I really ended up enjoying it. I was apprehensive going into book 2 because I was wondering if Jenny Han would keep the stuff I loved or abandon that and just keep the stuff I didn't love. And so I actually read the premise, which is something I don't often do at all. 99.8% of the books I read, I go in blind. The only thing I know is the age range and the genre, but I needed to know what I was going to be in for this one. I needed to be prepared. And the premise actually had me excited. And you know what? I actually did enjoy this book more. I gave it 4 stars. So let's just get into my thoughts. It is book 2, so I don't want to spoil anything for you, but I do have a premise of this book up on my Goodreads. I've done a review, so feel free to check that out if you wish. But my thoughts are that, there was lots to unpack, but keeping it brief, I really enjoyed, we had an A trope in this book. So by A, I mean, if you've watched Pretty Little Liars, you know who A is, because if there was ever one standout letter in the series Pretty Little Liars, it was A. But anyway, but A, in the A trope, for me, I would define as the unknown antagonist, and we're trying to work out who they are. We have that trope come up in this book, and so something goes down. We're trying to work out who this unknown antagonist is, despite the fact that it's a romance, and I really enjoyed that a lot because I love that trope anyway. I can read that a million times and still love it, so that I really did appreciate. So I loved that came up in a romance book and enjoyed trying to figure out who it was. I also enjoyed seeing so in the first book, Lara Jean has written letters to all the boys that she has loved before, which isn't a lot. When you say the word all, it sounds like there's many, but I think she loved 5 boys up to this point. So she'd written them letters, but never intended to send them. But yet somehow in book 1, they end up getting sent without her knowing about it. And all these boys are getting back to her. One boy did not get back to her in book 1, but did get back to her in book 2. And so I'm letting you know that because I did enjoy seeing the final letter responder getting back to Lara Jean, and as well as what ensued from there. So I did appreciate that. I have grown to love Lara Jean as a character and cannot wait to see how it all turns out in the concluding book in this month in April with, whatever it's called. Always and Forever Lara Jean. Okay, but for this one, it got 4 stars. So that was a bump up from the first one. I'm liking the series so far, honestly. Can't wait to read book 3. The next book that I read was this book, Flowers and Foul Play by Amanda Flower, which, yeah. Anyway, the fact that flowers is the first word and that the final word I'm saying when I'm introducing this book is the word flower. It throws me off a little bit, but that's okay. It is what it is. This is book number 1 in the Magic Garden Mystery Series by Amanda Flower. And I need to apologize to anyone who has read my Goodreads review of this book, because I am now realizing that I gave it officially a 4-star rating, and then at the end of my review I say 5 stars. So how confusing is that? But anyway, it is 4 stars and I will need to go back and edit that. But anyway, very quick backstory. Last year I read Amanda Flower's Amish stuff, so I read Amish Candy Shop and Amish Matchmaker, and got completely up to date on both of those series, having never read either of them, or really a lot of cozies at all prior to 2022. But anyway, having not even known about Amanda Flower prior to 2022, I went from nothing to fully getting up to date with Candy Shop and Matchmaker, and loved them both, and wanted to do the same thing I did last year. This year, selecting 2 Amanda Flower series to add to my SAS list. This is one of them. I'm starting the other series I'm reading of hers this month in April, which is the Magic Bookshop series, but this is book 1 in the Magic Garden Mystery series, and please, can we take a moment to appreciate the cover? I know that cozy covers are gorgeous because I've been commenting on how pretty they are from the moment I got my very first cozy mystery cover, which was The Witching Flower by Samantha Silver. But this one just is so incredibly cute. It's something maybe about the cozy home or the squirrel on the cover, and that there's all this luscious green, grass and stuff in the background. I don't know what it is, but this is just, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. Just like most of my other cozies, I want to copy the cover, blow it up to a poster size, and just stick it up somewhere around the house, because I just think this is gorgeous. But anyway, let's talk about the book itself. So, in this first book in the Magic Garden Mystery series, we follow Fiona, who has found out 3 things. 1, her fiancé cheated on her. 2, it was with the wedding planner. And 3, that her flower business is done for. So it's perfect timing for her when her godfather leaves her his home in Scotland in his will. Fiona arrives in Scotland from America and ventures out to her godfather's pride and joy, his garden, only to find a man there dead. Next thing she knows, her godfather's best friend Hamish is the number 1 suspect, and just like her godfather would, Fiona steps in to try and clear his name. But with everyone hating this man that died, it seems impossible to locate the real killer. Except there's something odd about the garden itself. It all looked completely dead the moment she arrived, but the longer she stays there, the more it's coming back to life. Is there indeed something magical about this garden, and can it help her to unlock the secrets that will lead to the real killer? Okay, so I listened to this on audiobook and strongly struggled with the chosen accent the narrator used for Fiona. I really did. And I complained. There's another word I want to use, but again, we can't use that word on BookTube, so we'll say complained. I complained about it constantly on Discord, and if you were there to experience me complaining about the narrator's accent, I am so sorry. But it just really grinded my gears. But anyway, it's fine. I dealt with it. In saying that, I did not take it out on, I did not take out the 1-star rating, so going from 5 to 4 stars, on Amanda Flower because of that narrator, because I wouldn't do that to Amanda Flower. But ultimately, I do think Amanda Flower has written a good book. I've come to learn many things about Amanda Flower as I go along, and one of them is her love for animals. In Candy Shop, we have Jethro the pig. In Matchmaker, we have Philip and Peter the goats. And in this series, we have Duncan the squirrel, which to my mind was a nice touch to the book. I also enjoy getting to know the town and ended up striking my own bond with Pressure, who is an Indian woman who runs a tea shop. What a beautiful mother hen type she is. I love Ivanhoe, who is a cat, and Hamish, as well as the crew that Precious' brother has formed. All in all, the mystery itself admittedly did not intrigue me, but the community and Fiona's surroundings definitely did, and even though the magic only appeared at the end of book 1, I also appreciated that when it finally came to light, and can't wait to see it expand in future books. 4 stars from me. The next book that I read was this book, What to Say Next by Julie Buxbaum. This is a YA contemporary book, and I gave this book 5 stars. Can I just say before we go any further, Julie Buxbaum, what are you doing to me? Oh my gosh, I need to read even more of your books. Oh my gosh, I had not read Julie Buxbaum prior to this year. This is the second book of hers that I've read, and oh my gosh, in a recent video I was talking about an author being a lock for me. I think I was saying it in my TBR video for April, how if I read one book and I trust an author, that is something, but if I read 2 in a row that are perfect for me, that is a lock for me on that author, that I love them. Julie Buxbaum is way locked in as an author that I love. She has failed to let me down yet. I absolutely trust her, and I need to read more of her contemporaries. That in mind, let's quickly keep going because we're running out of time very quickly here. So, the premise of this book. In this book, we follow the perspective of 2 people, David and Kit. David is a boy who has Asperger's and is used to sitting alone because people at high school consider him to be odd. Kit is a girl who is struggling with the grief and loss of her father. One day, not being able to struggle being around her friends, Kit decides to sit across from David. David says to her, "So your father dies." He says it very bluntly. But this simple, blunt truth starts a conversation between the pair that leads to so much more than I ever could have expected. Oh my gosh, it was so good. So, first off, praise to Julie Buxbaum. This was an incredible read that everyone needs to read. We all need to just read this book, put down what you're reading, and pick up What to Say Next. Put down what you're reading and pick up a Julie Buxbaum. Seriously, we just need to read this stuff. She's amazing. David captured my heart pretty much right from the beginning. And Kit's journey very much intrigued me. I love that this was a dual perspective, as we really needed David's perspective just as much as we needed someone's perspective that saw David from the outside, and Kit took that place well. I don't want to give away spoilers, so I'll just say this. Trust me, read it. You won't regret it. It is amazing. Julie Buxbaum is amazing. I am convinced she is dedicated to the research she does for the contemporaries that she writes, and you'll know I don't passionately say you'll need to read this book unless I am dead convinced that you do. I very rarely say you need to read this book. I think the first time I did it was with The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, and I was validated because recently it got an Oscar for the movie adaptation, so there you go. You need to read What to Say Next. Just trust me on that. You need to read this book. It was fantastic. 5 stars from me. And the final book we're going to discuss for part 1 of my March monthly wrap is this book, Amanah's Song. This is book number 2 in the Amanah's Voice duology. I've now read it, so I've crossed that off my list. This duology, as well as obviously the book, is a middle grade contemporary, and for Amanah's Song, I gave it 5 stars. Okay. There's a retraction I need to make, which is, in book 1, in Amanah's Voice, I was led to believe that Amanah was Arabian, and then I found out in this book, no, she's not. She is Pakistani. But anyway, I seriously don't know how that happened. I think it just came very much across as she was Arabian. I'm sure that was mentioned in the first book, because I wouldn't go out on a limb and just say, it is this, when I don't know for sure. So I'm guessing those words were in the first book, but in this one, it is very clear to see she is a Pakistani. And that is because this book opens up with her in Pakistan. So she's there with her family, seeing what's going on with her family. Alright, so I'm going to talk to you about this book. I will give you the premise of this one because as much as it is a duology, I don't feel like I'm giving away spoilers if I tell you the premise of book 2, because you really could just read book 2 on its own. You can read them as though they're standalones, honestly. So here we go. Premise of this book. In this final book in the Amina's Voice duology, we continue to follow Amina, who has found herself in Pakistan, her family's home nation, where she's spending time with her family. However, as amazing as this experience has been, and as much as she's loved spending time with her family and life, and as much as she loves spending time with her family, life and school must go on, so she inevitably returns back home to the US. Before she leaves, her uncle has one request of her. I want you to show people in America the beauty of Pakistan. They don't know this place like you do now. Amina promises she will, but with racial stereotypes and media misinformation about Pakistan consuming the minds of her classmates, how can Amina show America the beauty that is Pakistan? So, my thoughts? This book was amazing from start to end. I loved how Hannah Khan made the book entertaining whilst also teaching us all about the beauty that is Pakistan and the preconceived thoughts that people have of the nation. Amina's love of music carries over to this book, and at one point she joins the drama club. Those two things interest me greatly, and so I was entertained for much of this book even when we weren't learning about Pakistan. The message was clear and really got to me. I really appreciated learning more about Amina, her family's background, Pakistan, and what I can only assume is Khan's background also. Definitely wouldn't say no to picking up more of Khan's works. An overwhelming 5 stars, and I do wish that there was a third book in this series. Like, let's make it a trilogy, but I don't think that's going to happen because Hannah Khan's gone on to release other things, and it just doesn't look like she's going back to this one. But I feel like she could. Like, it's open-ended enough that she could go on to write another one, and I hope she does. If she does, I'll definitely read a third one because I grew to end up loving the duology overall. So 5 stars for me with that one. Alright, so there you go. That is 1 book I DNF'd and 6 books that I read in the month of March. I will be back with my next video where I'm going to do a part 2 where I talk about the second half of my completed books for March in 2023. But in the meantime, how did you enjoy your month of March? Let me know in the comments below a book that you enjoyed reading in the month of March. Until our next video, however, I'm going to let you all go with peace, blessings, and so much love. Please do be kind and love one another and spread your sparkling energy all throughout the world. And until next time, happy reading. Bye everyone.